Hey everybody, looks like we are live. It's great to see everybody. Happy Wednesday. We made it to yet another week. Did have a little bit of a late start, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? So I hope everybody is uh, enjoying the week and are healthy. That's really important to me. So let's see what great people are here so far. We have JC. How are you, JC? Great to see you all the way from the Atlanta area. We have Dan from the Indianapolis area. So great to see you, Dan. And we have Raul, fellow Jersey guy. How's it going? Good to see you. Raul's doing some amazing painting. This is just incredible. He did this one painting and it looks like she's 3D. I mean, your work is astounding. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Raul, uh, for really sharing your work with us. I really appreciate that. And yes, making tea. Actually, I got some water today, but tea is a good idea. I may just do that midway during the live stream. So that is a great idea. So I just wanted to show you one of the things I'm working on right here. This is an oil painting, and it's over a airbrush underpainting. And you can see just, the technique that you can get. I'm working on this as a class, a lesson with one of my students in the mentorship program. And thanks, Raul. I'm learning a lot from you as well. Definitely, how you handle the figure and the way you paint light is just incredible. Thanks, JC. I appreciate that. So, Mr. Mike McClung, how's it going? Great to see you. Can't wait to see Susan Day. She was just so amazing in the Partridge Family. I remember having a crush on Susan Day back when I was just a little guy, but I was an advanced kid, so so I love Susan Day, Linda Carter, just all the Charlie's Angels, right? Back in the 70s, women were just so gorgeous, I think. So I'm really looking forward to that painting. So this is one I'm working with, and I'm going to zoom in and let's see, we can definitely see, it's a lot of fun painting things you're not used to. Like, it's great because my students, I pretty much give my students the ability to pick what they want to paint. So it's great because it gets me out of my comfort zones, right? So you learn a lot. Oh, Michael says that his cousin looked a lot like her. Oh, wow, that's gorgeous. Very, very, very pretty lady from the Partridge Family. Both, uh, now, I forget her name. What was the mom's name? Was a was the last name? What was the mom's name in? I can't believe it escapes me, but the mom's name on the Partridge Family. She was totally gorgeous during that show, right? Just incredible. Here is the portrait that I'm working on over in airbrush underpainting. And Mr. Marshall, how's it going? Dwayne, St. Luis de Obispo, go Mustangs, not banana slugs. Great to see you. Uh, yes. Yeah, orange peel is good when you're doing it on purpose, right? So that's true. Uh, so this is, as you can see, I'll zoom in. This is, over the airbrush in India ink underpainting. So what I do is I have the line drawing, then I do the airbrush in India ink. After the airbrush in India ink, I put a coat of shellac. So it will basically take anything, oils, airbrush at that point, and the paper will be like a piece of canvas, right? It'll be impervious, I guess the word is for it. And so, Mr. Brad, how's it going all the way from Manitoba? Michael McClung, all the way from the Maryland area. So I'm working as I go down. So before, when I used to paint the ensemble. and then go ahead and get into details. But lately, I've been doing things differently. I work on the airbrush underpainting, shellac it when I'm working in oils, and then I'll work in one area and get very detailed and finished and just kind of bleed out into the painting. Once the painting is completely finished, then I do that two more times, two layers, but each layer trying to get it as finished as possible. And when you do that, you see more detail and you see more of the finer points of the model. You get better edge work that way. So I'm finding that to be a very beneficial way of working. The same goes for when I'm working in airbrush now, is I try and isolate an area and really work it to finish the best I can and go from there. But the underpainting is always this right here, which we're going to be working on this evening. Let me take these paintings. They're still wet. I've been working on them today. It's great to have a lot of paintings going. Let's see. Oh, so here's the other one I'm working on with another student. This is a copy or a master copy of a 19th century academic painter, Jules Joseph Lafay. And the same thing, I could be working the whole ensemble, but what I want to do is make sure that I take care of the focus and get that to a degree of finish and then bleed out from there and then get the whole painting done and then do that 3 times. And I end up being very happy. Philip, how's it going? Great to see you. How are you, sir? So glad you're here. Philip, where are you from? I used to have it right in the front of my mind, so I just need a refresher. If you don't mind. I always like to know where everyone's from, just letting everybody know how important everyone is to the live stream and to me. So, I'm grateful to see you, Philip. It's been a while, and so I'm so glad you're here. And oh, California, are you in Southern or Northern California? I think you're Southern, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna take a swig of my water. Mr. Brad, how did today go? Just asking Brad how his day went. It's always good to hear from my students, so I'm so glad you're here, sir. Okay, so this is where we are. Oh, Central, closer to Southern than Northern. Oh, great. Very cool. Very cool. Love California. Beautiful state. When I was there, it was like a whole different world compared to us on what we have on the East Coast. It's definitely a different kind of beauty, and it's stunning, and the people are just super nice. They really are. Okay, so this is also Airbrush in India ink, and then over the Airbrush India ink, I went ahead and shellacked the paper. It's 184 pound. This is a 184 pound paper by Canson. It's called Colorline paper. It's a cardstock. Canson makes a lot of different papers, but this one is cardstock. It's called Colorline. One side is smoother than the other. I always work on the smoother side. And then once I have the Airbrush India ink underpainting, then I shellac it, and then you can go over it with oils. I believe we used the Lifeline colors. We went ahead and used the Lifeline colors as a underpainting in color, and that helps you a lot. So that's really cool. Oh, Philip says it's been a while. Nice to have time to tune in. Oh, it's great to see you, sir. Mr. Dwayne says there's no place like Central Cali. Yes, that's beautiful. Really, really wonderful place to live. That's for sure. So this is again, so it all goes down to whether you want to work in pastels, you want to work in Createx, which is acrylic. if you want to work in oils, this is the life's blood of my technique is the Airbrush India ink. You can even go with the Airbrush India ink and make this a finished piece, and that's the great thing. Mr. Cheese Grits and NyQuil, how's it going, Patrick? How are you feeling, sir? I'm so glad you're here. Let me put this away. So as you can see, I got a lot of things in the fire, so to speak, right? It's very important for that, to get a lot of things in the fire. So right now, we have this painting, and we're going to develop her. And let's see, as soon as I find my glasses, where are they? So usually they're right here, right? And they are kind of invisible, so that's important. Much better. Ah, so glad to hear that, my friend. That is so cool. So very, very cool. So let me go ahead and ascertain or locate my glasses, which are over here. So that was fast. All right, so we are going to, I believe we can work on her dress. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. And we'll use our magnets to secure her. And let's see. Perfect. Now, let's go ahead and see if I have the dress only stencil that we made. And that's one of the things I really teach in my mentorship program is, you know, how to make a painting from start to finish, how to get the reference material, how to make your line drawing, how to make, you know, using different programs that help, but everything being by hand, which is great. Because the best of our ability, we want to have our handwriting, so to speak, our signature in our work. So I really go in depth. And then, you know, of course, the control of the airbrush, and then, you know, working with color and the color theory and all that. So I really try and take care of my students and, you know, meet them where they are in their journey. And so that's a lot of fun. Gary, how's it going? Great to see you, my friend. How's Kyle doing? I'm always in my thoughts. He's a young man, so I know he's going to bounce back really fast. So you and your family, you and your wife it must have been a rough week to say the least, right, sir? I could only imagine the anxiety of everything. So great to see you. Thank you so much for hanging out, my friend. I really appreciate that so much. And I'm getting everything ready to, you know, with the gift and everything to send out to you pretty shortly. You'll have, you know, the paintings and everything, and I have something very special cooking up for you. So I'm excited to hear what you think. Okay, so now we can go ahead and I'm using the Extreme Patriot Extreme Patriot Arrow, not the 105. That's this guy right here. And what we're going to do is I had it parked with water. I'm going to get rid of the water. And I'm still going to be using the detail mixture. And I'm going to be diluting that 1-to-1 with water. So that's pretty good. So now, the detail mixture is very thin, but when I do my initial layers, I want to have as much control. Just like in anything, the thinner or the more diluted, whether it's with 4011 with, let's say, Createx, or, you know, inks with water, oils with turpentine, or even with, let's say, linseed oil or what have you, the thinner the paint, the more you're going to have control with it. That's not going to be so, you know, you put it on and like, oh my God, it's there, right? So always thin it out, everything you're working on in the early going. So Gary says he's stable and not much change. A little improvement is better than none. Yes, definitely. And, oh yes. So yeah, so it's not going to be easy, you know, the road to recovery, but before you know it, he'll be 100% again. So that we pray for and hope comes sooner, sooner than anyone expected. And Philip says, Mr. Marshall, I see Morolock you in California. Oh, okay. So that's great. And that must be in Central Cali, right? So Philip and Dwayne are both in Central California. And Mr. Patrick says, hang in there, Gary. We're all rooting for good things. Definitely, sir. Definitely. That's really great thoughts, we're all having for you and your family. Okay, so here is, now I got to get my water. We'll put my water right here. And we'll dilute it 1 to 1 because we're doing the initial layers. Let's see. There we are. 1 to 1. And get my little plastic palette knife and mix that really well. So the great thing about the Airbrush India inks is, after this you just have the applicator, put it right in there. There's not much mixing going on. But I generally don't like to mix in the airbrush. I mean, sometimes you have to, but I always try and mix things outside the airbrush. Not right or wrong, just, my working method, so to speak. And let's see. Oh, yes, live on the Central Coast. Very cool. Very, very cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I have a scrap piece of paper. I'm going to make sure that the airbrush is working before I put it on my painting. This is very thin. Now here's a good tip. Sometimes when you have your airbrush parked for a couple of days, what will happen is, even if there isn't anything on the nozzle and the needle, it may get stuck, right? And you'll feel that, it's not as loose or responsive. What I like to do is take this off, because sometimes when you loosen the chucking nut, you can loosen the needle tension guide, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that, you're only twirling a needle. So I loosen my chucking nut, and then all I do is just twirl my needle, right? So anything that is caught at the nozzle tip and the needle, if anything has dried there or just kind of seized in a way, that will definitely free it up. Then I'll just pull it back and then press out some, and that's it. Since I have the backing off, I could, put the needle forward. I could tighten my chucking nut, and I can make sure that my needle tension is set to exactly the way I want it. If I did that, even, let's say, from here, I can do that, but sometimes you can change the tension, and then you're not fully in control with how your airbrush is going, So that's very important. Just these little tips that, we get from working on this for a while, doing airbrush and all that fun stuff. And let's see, so I'm going to get my reference material, and let's see, where is she? Neoclassical Girl, that's not her. I may have to, so there's this program called PureRef. Everyone knows that program. And so what we do is, I have to find it here, and this is Krita. Has anyone out there worked with Krita? It's really like my favorite program in the whole wide world. It's free open source software, which is really great. The developers do it as a non-profit, which is really wonderful. Mr. Steve Leahy, how are you, sir? Great to see you. How's everything? Great to see the artwork that you're doing. It's really wonderful. The car with the headlight and the reflection of the sky, that's really amazing. So this week you're not doing the Thursday at 1 p.m. Does that mean you'll be doing Sunday this week? We'd love to hear it, so we can definitely support your new time. So let us know, my friend. And Brad says Krita is awesome, necessary for color theory, necessary for creating your artwork, and I mean just everything. It's just so integral part of the way that I work, the way that I teach. It's just everything. Making my thumbnails, it's everything. It's just so important. So I'm going to close my window, and now I'm going to find my reference, because remember, you can't paint without your reference, not even for a second. Let's see. I'm gonna go get that, and let's see here. So go to my pictures. And also, do you guys find, like on your computer, having a lot of different paintings together and reference material for the paintings? How is everyone with file management? You feel that you're doing great with file management, or is it something that you feel you can improve? I'd love to hear your thoughts, or maybe some tips on file management on your PCs. That's so important to me. That's something I teach in my mentorship program. It's very, very important. Let's see, where are you? There we go. And great, I do have, okay, great. I have my reference material here. That is fantastic. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and just start working on her dress. Like anything else that you work with, you always want to make sure that you are working on the large areas, right? And I'm going to work on the large areas, but I'm not going to get too specific because that would be a very boring live stream. So I'm going to move around a little bit, go outside of my new technique of kind of sitting in one area. But we're just going to, for the sake of an interesting live stream, kind of get an idea of, how I kind of build up the shadow areas in folds. And you want to work on the large shapes, right? You don't want to work on the small shapes. And here is a good time to actually work with freehand shields, right? So we'll just, because, with folds you want to have some of those sharp edges. If you don't use a freehand shield, I find the work looks kind of mushy, right? You want to have that kind of, sharp folds going into the kind of the soft inner folds, and have that contrast of sharp and soft, and you can only do that with your freehand shield, so that's very important. Airbrush Dungeon, Shirley Jones, how's it going? Great to see you. Airbrush Dungeon, where are you from? I don't remember seeing you recently, so glad for you to join us. Shirley Jones, incredible, right? Just an incredible artist, an incredible actress, just so beautiful, and beautiful even up into her 80s, just stunning. Very, very cool. Pennsylvania, so glad to see you. Great people in Pennsylvania, neighboring state to New Jersey, of course. So I just think it's a beautiful state you're in. And so welcome to the live stream. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for hanging out. Always feel free to ask any questions. If I can't answer them, there's a myriad of very intelligent, talented painters out there. And so I'm so glad you're here. And let's see if we can zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little better, you guys and girls. So far, I think it's an all-male live stream, which is not bad, but we always like the women folk. So hopefully some women will say, "Hey Tim, I'm here." That's always great. And like I said, we're just going to build this up slowly and kind of work out from there. Let's see if I can focus this very quickly. And come back here. See if I can focus this. There we go. That's a little better in focus. It's very light, so it's pretty hard to see. Let's see if I can zoom out here. There we go. And we'll zoom out a little bit. We don't want to go crazy so we can't see what I'm doing. And here's an example of getting that nice hard edge here. Most of the time I always advocate for perpendicular and not parallel, but when it's a small area like this, I think parallel is okay in a small area. So once again, I'm just building up very slowly the larger area of the folds. I'm using the freehand shield to make sure that I'm getting those hard edges where I want them, you know. Gary says, Airbrush Dungeon, he's from Lebanon near Hershey. Oh, cool, yes. So we have more PA people in the house. So that is fantastic. I went to college for a semester in Glassboro, which was Glassboro State College at the time. And I studied with an artist called Daniel Chard, very talented. And that's just outside of Philly. I find that the part of New Jersey that is bordering Philadelphia is so different than the part of New Jersey that is bordering New York City. It's like night and day. And again, just working on building up very slowly the light and darks and large shapes of our folds. And I'm just going to do part of it just to show everybody, you know, my process and how I take care of this. And notice when I want to get, you know, real sharp lines, I'll go up close with the airbrush and then pull back to get more of a gradation. Let the airbrush do the hard work, you know. Thanks, Gary. I really appreciate that so much. I thank you. Thank you so much for everyone's encouragement. It means so much to me. Mr. Tone, all the way from New York. Great to see you. Loving the new studio. I'm so glad you're here. And so glad you're back, you know, doing the great airbrushing that everyone has come to know and love, as well as myself, loving your work. So glad you're back. And let's see, and that's the great thing, you know, having a good line drawing to establish the large shapes, right? So you're not, you know, throwing darts at a board, so to speak. You have a good foundation, and also, you know, having a good line drawing, making good freehand stencils that you're able to, you know, lay down the large shapes first and then go from there. So, you know, having a really good approach, right? Game plan. The more you plan, the more of a success that is going to, the more chances of your success. Like the more you plan it out, the more experience you have, or even the more experience you have with, let's say, having a teacher, you know, to kind of keep you from getting those pitfalls, right? And then from there, you know, when you leave the tutelage of your teacher, you're able to create your own game plan, which is very important. You know, success is really really hinged on, you know, knowing the steps and being as pragmatic as possible from the very beginning to the very end. If you have your step by step and just know like what comes next, what to look for, why is that next step. Those are things that are so important. uh, Brad says I'm an art encyclopedia. I appreciate that, and so that's very cool. And Dwayne says, JC, it's definitely a traffic jam around there during tourist season. I could imagine. I lived in Orlando for like 8 years in Florida, and during well, all year round, but it seemed like during, the tourist time, it was really just inundated with a lot of traffic. But that was a long time ago, and now Orlando is a whole different place now. I haven't been there since I moved in 1996, and everyone who's still down there, I still have family down there, and they're like, I wouldn't recognize it. Things can't stay the same, which is good and bad, but sometimes you want them to stay the same. And just again, we're going to kind of just slowly work on this sleeve here. And you want to take your time. The longer so I heard someone say that Drew Blair, I never took Drew Blair's class, but they said in Drew Blair's class, he would say, slow down to speed things up. And that's such great advice, right? Because when we do slow down, we do speed things up because we're not making mistakes and we're really focusing, right? Focus is everything. And of course, we're going very light, so we always start lighter than we want to and we build up. Plenty of time to go dark. And I always say, too dark too soon, too bad, right? And that is so true. You don't want to go ahead and go too dark because there's nowhere to go from there. If you go light, you can always slowly lighten things up, darken things up. But if you go too dark from the outset, bam, it just hits hard. And Michael says, Tim, he's wrong. He said Susan Day. I meant, oh, Susan Day George. Yes, she was gorgeous, right? I think her name was Susan Day George. Very pretty lady. She did a lot of the CBS movies of the week. I remember my parents would watch those movies. What a pretty lady. And and Raul says, do you still have a connection with USA Airbrush? Yes, I do. So if you want to purchase anything from USAAirbrushSupply.com, use the code TimothyPSA. And Timothy PSA will give you 15% off your order. That would definitely take care of your sales tax and a little bit more. So go ahead and use that for 15% off. That's great. And so now I'm not privy to get parts, and that's rough. I mean, it's hard to get parts, and so we're working on that with Ken over there at Badger. Hopefully things will get resolved really soon. So I'm going to move over here and kind of move out just a little bit with the folds here. But really staying really connected, right? Really have my focus. Look at the edges. Where's a hard edge? Where's a soft edge, right? But I'm going to show you something that I do which is really cool. This is a new part. Those who have been following my Airbrush and India ink in the past are going to really find this new part kind of interesting. And I guess I'll just stay here and just bring in some of the new technique here, which you'll definitely find cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other airbrush and I'm going to mix the my white, right? So the 50/50 illustration white. I'm going to mix that 1-to-1 with water, and then I'm going to go back in and kind of do some heavier applications of white after I put in some of the shadows. So I'm just going to kind of jump ahead just to show you guys. Now you have to be careful because blue shift is everywhere. But since I'm working so light with the diluted detail mixture, I don't have that problem. I actually am able to come in and reinforce the white. So right here is the water, and then I'm going the illustration white, and I'm going to mix it 1-to-1, maybe a tiny bit more. So 1-to-1 is good. You're diluting it. It's a little bit thicker than the inks, but it has a little more opacity, so you have less of the blue shift by doing 1-to-1. Sometimes when I start in the very beginning doing the white mixture, I may go 2-to-1 with the 50-50 illustration white and the water. So you see, I did park the airbrush with water in there. So for a couple of days, I did not deep clean it, and I just went ahead and cleaned out the cup and sprayed it until I sprayed clear, put water in, and then parked it. And let's see how that goes. I'm going to put a little bit of this in here. Test it out. And yes, definitely 15% off's not bad. Any discount I can give you guys is always a pleasure. Who doesn't love 15% off, right? So now I have this, and you will see we're going to very slowly build up our white. But we're going to be subtle, right? We're not going to be heavy-handed with this. So here we have a white highlight here. And just like anything else, you want to slowly build it up, so you're not going to stay in that area. You'll spray it, you'll let it dry, come back, hit it again. So with the detail mixture, I'm building up my darks, but with the white, I'm building up my lights. So it's opposite, but the same thinking. I'm going to put on the mask because there's kind of a weird smell coming from the paint, which I'm not happy with. And let's see, so we will put this here, and okay, so I'm going to put on my mask. Hopefully I won't sound like Darth Vader. Okay, so I have my mask on. It sounds a little muffled, but that's okay. I just don't want to be breathing in the weird smell, right? So let's continue with this. Oh, Michael, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I really appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your amazing artwork. And I can't wait to see Susan Day George. That's amazing. You got me going. I may do Susan Day from the Partridge Family now. So you got me excited about that. And thank you for your friendship and your support and hanging out and your ideas and feedback. I really appreciate it. And I'm so encouraged always by you guys and girls being here and just all the positivity. And I look forward to Wednesday night so much. And thank you again, Michael, for the support and friendship. I really appreciate you. And that goes for everyone out there. Thank you so much for your friendship and hanging out. You know, there's so many good things out there. And the fact that you hang out at my live stream really means a lot to me. I'm going to make sure I'm not, don't have my paint next to my painting, which is very important. But you see, now I can go back and build up the white and work back and forth to really develop my folds, right? And that's so important. Oh, Gary says he has to take care. Great to see you, Gary. Take care. Thanks so much for hanging. And, prayers and thoughts for Kyle and your family. And just hang in there, and things are going to get much better. I know it. So thank you so much, and take care, Gary. Hope to see you on some of the live streams over the weekend. And so that is cool. Gary from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Always a pleasure. And we have Mr. Brad. Thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I appreciate that so much. Always love working with you, Brad. Brad's my oldest tenured student, 4.5 years. We work together. Brad has had a one-man show. He has taught airbrush. He has portrait commissions now. So I like nothing better than see my airbrush and painting students just shine, and he's really shining. So thank you so much for your continued support, sir. Nick, how's it going? Great to see you, Nick. Nick, if I'm not mistaken, you are from Oklahoma. Did I get that right? And I'm so glad to see you. So I may have gotten it wrong, but I would say 50-50 I got it right. And let's zoom out, and you can see just how subtle we're working on that shoulder, right? So I'm not going to stay there too long. Minnesota, okay. So it was the center of the country, so we just had to go north a little bit. Great to see you, sir. So glad you're here, and thank you for staying by. Thank you for coming by. I really appreciate it so much. So while I'm spraying this white, there's like a weird smell. I don't want to be breathing that in. The cat's not here. She's in the other room, so you know, you always got to take care of your lungs, right? You always do. Now the ink, India ink, is not anything to ever worry about. It's just carbon, water, and just the tiniest little bit of shellac, so it's totally fine. There's no precautions with the India ink that you need to have. So right here, I have this nice edge with the shield here. And I'm just going to reinforce that edge. And I can do that here as well, right? Go right on that edge with the Airbrush India ink, and now with the 50-50 illustration white. Now, why 50-50 illustration white? And I get a lot of questions. Some people say, well, Tim, how come you don't use white ink? Well, because white ink does not erase. The only thing that I find that works well with this technique is the 50-50 illustration white. It's the only stuff out there that erases and doesn't trap your pencil lines forever. So, what Createx and Drew Blair actually came up with is genius. And Michael says, Tim, I still think you would have done Farrah Fawcett better. No way, that's a one-of-a-kind piece of artwork, Michael. I think you knocked that out of the park. I think Farrah would have loved it, definitely. So I'm so excited that you did it. It's just so beautiful. I'm so excited to have an original Michael McGlung painting in my possession. So, when I get my new apartment one day in the future, that's going to have a place of prominence in my new apartment. Okay, so, and you can see now, if I'm going to remove just the stencil, and you can just like peel it up, right? So you don't lose your spot. Let's see. Move this guy here. And now you can see just, how interesting that is. So I'm not going to sit here and just do these folds because that's going to be a pretty boring live stream. So now I'm going to work on her flesh here, her skin, her deltoid here, and the chromium process, and the clavicle, and her breast area. We're really going to go in there and start to work. But I have a stencil that covers the dress, so we don't lose the difference, the hard edge between her dress and her flesh. That's very important to get that realism, right? And so that's cool. So I'm going to take this aside. I'm going to look for the dress only stencil, and we're going to come and start working on some of this area, working on some of her anatomy, right? So let's see. Hopefully I have that dress only stencil. You never know. Things like just now, things fall, and once they fall, it's like, do I find it because they're invisible in my studio and that happens? But I think I have the dress only stencil here. And you see it's all done by hand. You know, the line drawing's done by hand with the aids of programs and, uh, you know, using, what's that program that we use all the time? Cameo 4. You could use the Krita or Cricut or Cricut. Tomato. Let's call the whole thing off, so to speak. We're going to kind of put this on here. This is the stencil made from the original line drawing. So the stencils are made from the original line drawing, so everything adds up in the beginning. Like, you know, as we work, we change things, right? And, you know, your stencils might not fit. That could be the issue. But in the beginning, they fit perfectly. And so I hope if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm always excited to help out and answer any questions. Any questions is not too small, not too big. I'm going to go back to my detail mixture. I'm going to put my magnets. Always have the magnets close to the edge so you don't have underspray. Another trick that I like doing is spraying away from my freehand shield. So if I go this way, and it's better chance of it tucking underneath and getting like really weird edge work. But if I spray away from the shield, then things look really, really hard edged when I want them to. I'm going to turn my air conditioner on. Even though it's 61 degrees, airbrushing and live stream evidently is strenuous work. Let's see. I'm going to put that on there. Dave, how's it going, Dave? Great to see you all the way from Texas. How's life treating you, sir? Always a pleasure. So, how's everything out there? How's everything going? And I know you're very busy. You said you were going to be doing a lot of traveling. Is that true? And Michael says, Tim, he just has to ask, how's the paint gun coming along with the parts? Yes, so and I really appreciate your patience on that, and definitely you've been extremely patient. I'm just waiting on Ken. I know he was on a convention and everything. Now I do have a solution. I could send you one I have in stock as a loaner until those parts come in. I do have a Extreme Patriot arrow, so you could use that airbrush, and you know, when the Extreme Patriot 105 comes in, you can go ahead and send me that one when you get the 105. Does that sound like a good solution, sir? Let me know, because I want you to have the dual airbrushes, you know. So really sorry for the delay on that. It's my fault. I take ownership of it. And so, Dave, thank you so much of the super chat, my friend. I really appreciate that. Always so generous, and always, you know, hanging out on the Wednesdays. I mean, I know you're a super busy person, so it's an honor that you spend time with us and support the live stream. I just want to say thank you so very much, sir. I really appreciate it. And Mr. Michael, let me know if I could send you the loaner brush until the other one comes, and that would be my pleasure. And so, but like I said, you know, it's I take ownership of it. I should have had the parts in stock when it was on the website, so that I do apologize for, sir. So now that I have this covered here, I don't have to worry about, you know, getting all mushy with the values here. Thank you, Michael, for your patience. I appreciate it. I will make it worth your while, though, sir. And, you know, you know, just really, really appreciating your patience with everything. Thank you so much. and also enjoying your work. It's an honor to have you use my airbrush. It really is, Michael. And so I'm not using the white, so I'm going to take the mask off, and so now you guys can hear me much better. Dave says he's busy, but good, Tim. Pennsylvania next weekend, followed by California, Nevada, Kansas, northern Texas over the next few weeks. Wow, that's a lot of traveling. But you do get to see a lot of the United States. Do you like the traveling? So that's, some people love traveling and it's like in their blood. How do you feel about it? And so that's really cool that you get to do that. So I admire that. So let's start with her shoulder right here with the deltoid, and the chromium process is right over here. It's where the clavicle and the scapula kind of meet right there with the uh, humerus bone. This is the humerus? Yes, I think the humerus bone. So very important part of uh, of our anatomy, right? So I'm going to spray away from the freehand shield. I mean, away from my stencil that I made from the line drawing. We're just going to. So when we're close, when we want that dark, we're going to be close with the airbrush. And then when we move away, we get the lighter value. And the further we move away, the value gets lighter, and we get this really beautiful blend. And that's the great thing about the airbrush, is that you can let that airbrush do the hard work, right? That's what we want. We don't want to do the hard work of making that really soft, soft edge and the hard edge. The airbrush will do it for us. And that's why, we practice this airbrush, because nothing can give us edge work like that. And I know, because I'm accomplished in pastel and oil paints and colored pencils and just India ink and just drawing. Nothing will give you the edge that an airbrush can give you, which is so fantastic. So Philip says he has a question. A friend's child is in basic art class, and the instructor has them do speed drawings of simple objects. Do you know the goal is by doing this exercise? Yes. So when you work fast, it's great training to get the essence of gesture of what you're doing, right? So let's say we used to have in the sketch classes in art school, whether I was at the High School of Art and Design, the Art Students League, National Academy of Art, we would do these kind of 1-minute sketches where the model would have a 1-minute pose, and we would have to get as much as we can. So the teacher would come by, and he would help you and say, you want to get the general gesture of what's happening, the tilt of the head, or the contrapposto of the shoulder going in one direction, the hips going in the other. And that gives you the ability to catch the essence of something. So let's say if you were just doing a 1-minute drawing of this, you would, if you had 1 minute and you were trying to get the proportions down and everything, all of the detail would kind of go away, and you would just be worrying about, okay, so we're going to look at the proportion of this. So this is probably 1/5 of this whole area, and then this is wider, this is thinner nonetheless. And then you would do that quick thing, and then you would do, let's say, some of the shadow. So it's really cool, because having those 1-minute sketches helps us to see the life's blood of what we're doing, which is really good, So very important thing for taking sketch classes, And great question, Philip. And Dave says he loves traveling, wish he had more time to drive it all. Had the time to drive it all. Prefer the road to air travel. Very interesting. Getting on a plane reminds him of cattle getting on a cattle car. Yes, definitely. Yeah, so driving, it's more autonomous. You can stop. You can say, hey, there's a McDonald's. Let me go ahead and have a Big Mac or something, right? And, have the music playing. So I definitely could see that. And Dave, I'm with you. Crowds, but living in New York City, going to art school in New York City, crowds was kind of part of my life. And now I live about 5 miles from New York City, so the same thing, it's like everything is crowded. You go to the supermarket, wall to wall people on a Sunday evening. But yeah, I like having, going to the expensive supermarket every now and then because although I can't afford the stuff there, if I went get one thing, it's okay because there's no one there. So I'm the same way. And Tone says airbrushing is his favorite medium. Yes, it really is just a wonderful medium. And it's a medium that encompasses everything. Fine art, it encompasses custom painting, it encompassing decorative art. I mean, it does everything. So it's like that saying, if someone hits the lottery, it's not going to change them, it's going to amplify who they are. And I think the same thing with airbrush. It's not going to change you as an artist, it's just going to amplify who you are as an artist. And it's gonna give you abilities that you didn't have without the airbrush. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you all feel the same way? Now, there's a beautiful hard edge here, and this is the beauty of the airbrush. So right here, we keep the hard edge of the dress next to the skin. But I have another stencil of just covering her face. And you'll see the method of my madness in a moment. Let's see. And do I still have the face only? Those are the things, it's just that, I lose these stencils, and it just happens because they're invisible, and, let's see, I think I have, well, this one is pretty much what I need. Let me see. It kind of has the dark, the cast shadow of her chin, right? So right here, there's this beautiful cast shadow. So I'm just going to put this down right here. I can use a freehand shield, but I like showing, how you can plan for this a little bit better. And so I'm going to put this here. And now I'm going to be able to get that hard edge exactly the way I want, which is really good planning, right? It's so important. And Tone says he hates crowd and just moved to Brooklyn. Yes, and that's true, Tone. But, it's like the same thing. Sometimes, it's like in Woody Allen at the end of Annie Hall. He tells this story. He says he goes to a psychiatrist and said, my brother, he thinks he's a chicken and we don't know what to do. And he said, well, why don't you bring him in here and cure him? He says, I would cure him, but we need the eggs. Right? So he thinks he's a chicken, but they need the eggs, so they don't want to cure him. So I can see that, like Brooklyn, right? Yes, you hate crowds, but it gives you a lot of what you need, the energy, the ability to get art supplies so soon. This is, in the area that you grew up and everything. So it's, yeah, it has a lot of things that are wrong, but the thing is you don't want to cure it because there's a lot of good that comes with it. Nick says he does most of everything at night, less distraction and traffic. It's so true. Us artists are definitely night owls, so to speak, because we like that quiet of the studio. The phone doesn't ring, and you don't have a lot of the encumbering things that come like with 2 o'clock in the afternoon and stuff like that. So working at night is definitely great, especially if you have a deadline. Am I right, guys? How about you, Dwayne? I know you do a lot of your work during the day. Do you work at night as well? And, oh, so it's faster to Manhattan. Yes, very true. So that's where the museums are, the art stores, just so much is so great. Airbrush Dungeon says he's traveling by sea. He's going to Eastern Caribbean cruise in October. Oh, wow, that's going to be great. You know what really excites me about cruises, and you're going to laugh, is the fact that you can get food at 2 in the morning or get a cup of coffee. That's exciting to me. I haven't been on a cruise, but that's the part that really makes me like, wow, that's something I'd like to experience. Not all the, the beautiful scenery and everything. I'm thinking about the 4 o'clock cup of coffee or the tea at whatever time, or having pizza at, at 9 o'clock at night. To me, that sounds just amazing. And we'll move this. So right here you can see we have a little bit of a hard edge, but don't worry about that. We're going to let that dry and I'll show you how to handle that hard edge, which is really good. So we have a cast shadow right there on the back of her neck, and I did draw it out. So I'm just going to work that. And we want that overspray in this case, right? So we don't always want hard edges. So I'm just going to build this little cast shadow of her hair. And it's darker here, but I don't want to just say, okay, I'm going to hit that dark. And some people might say, well, Tim, why don't you just go with the medium mixture and make it dark right away? The Airbrush India inks were devised to help students know that it's easier to work light, very light, and gradually go dark. And that's exactly what we're going to do. This is not going to be even close to the dark that we're going to make it in the end. But what we're doing is we're building it slowly. And by building it slowly, we make less mistakes and we're more exact. And we have a better solution, especially early in your airbrush career. So that's very important. And Mr. Dave says, nice, he loves cruising, sitting on a veranda all by himself in the morning. That sounds amazing. And just him in the sea until his family wakes up. And the rest is handled by all the inclusive drink package. That does be amazing. So when you said veranda, do you go to the actual deck of the ship, or is it actually a balcony in your room on the ship? That's amazing. So I had a family at one time, right? And I was married, and my ex-wife had 2 children. And I used to love Sunday mornings because nobody was up, and I would get up early. I would go to the bakery, get orange juice and buns and rolls, and have everything set up for when they worked. I woke up, and then I would go and paint for a couple hours before there was any stirring in the house. So Sundays were really, really amazing for me. Oh, the balcony off the room, how cool is that? Yeah, I would still be thinking about that, 3 o'clock cup of tea in the morning, but that is so amazing. I have to experience that one day. God willing, if it's His will, I'd be able to. But I'm so glad you guys are able to experience that, you and your family. That is such a blessing. So cool. So now you can see that there's a real big disparity between the thoracic area, the throat area, and the sternocleidomastoid coming down. It's way too harsh, but we're going to work on that. I'm just going to wait for that to dry. But we can see that over here, the value is a little bit darker. So we're going to very lightly come over here. So you want the compression of the values, right? You want those values fairly close. So that's where the midtones come in. Without the midtones, everything would be just super harsh, right? And it wouldn't turn. Now this is more of a cylindrical shape, the sternocleidomastoid, and it comes out. So we're going to make that turn and turn slowly into the light, right? Just bring that over. And same thing here. We have this shadow right here as the the clavicle turns down, and then we have the other part. Now the sternocleidomastoid comes from the back of the head behind the ear, and it comes down and splits into 2 parts. One part of the sternocleidomastoid attaches to the sternum, and the other part over here attaches to the clavicle. So we have to indicate that, right? And just like if you're playing punch buggy, in the car, and all of a sudden you're seeing Volkswagen bugs everywhere because you're looking for it. Same thing with anatomy. When you know it's there, you look for it, you find it, and your work has a little bit better realism. And very cool. So Airbrush Dungeon says, that's him too, up to catch the sunrise over the water while the wife is still snoozing. So cool. That is so great. I really hope and pray you have the most amazing cruise in October. The weather's perfect. You and your wife have a great time. So I want to hear how it is, and that's, hopefully it'll be great. Any cruises in your near future, Mr. Dave? I hope so. And oh, Nick says you get to use the waves. That's so cool. And I saw a video of this landscape painter, and he was doing a video on water mixable oil paints. And he was on a cruise, and he did a painting on the cruise on the deck. And he did a video, a YouTube video of it. And I thought that was so wild. But if I'm with a young lady on the cruise, I think she's going to kill me if I bring my paints. So I got to make sure I don't do that, because I think there's going to be a price to pay. Great, December 2025. That'll be here before you know it. So that's great to plan. And is that going to be the Caribbean? Is it going to be up north in Canada? Or is it going to be a West Coast? That's so exciting. I'm excited for you. And I know that's going to be amazing. I pray it's just going to be the best cruise ever for you, Mr. Dave, for you and your family. That is so cool. I love when, my friends get to do good things. And, I'm just so happy and rejoice in that. And Dave says, Nick, some people do, but some people don't. All depends on how rough the seas are. Oh, okay, cool. And so that's interesting. So when you say, do you get to use the waves, and in what way? Because, like I said, never been on a cruise. I've been on a fishing boat. That was the biggest. I've been on a cruise around New York City several times. That was a lot of fun. So now we're going to work on kind of fixing this hard edge here, right? And the way I fix the hard edge, so I'm going to test this out. I don't want to damage it. So I'm going to zoom in. You'll see how I kind of get rid of the hard edge that was left by the stencil. See, that's just ridiculous. I can't leave that, right? So I'm going to kind of do little circular movements that are on the light side and the dark side, right? And, almost like they're little kind of dagger strokes, right? They kind of lighten up as I pull off the paper. But I'm not putting too much pressure. And notice that I did wait for it to dry. So why wait for it to dry? Because if it's wet and I start erasing, I'm going to tear into that paper. Even though it's 184-pound paper, you want to respect the surface. So you want to let that ink and the paper kind of become one. So when you do erase, you're not damaging it. And this is pretty much soft edged all the way down, right? So I'm just going to do that circular motion. And you can see I really killed that hard edge. But, you just have to be patient with it. That's important. And Dave says, Tim, the wife just booked it for her birthday. It will be a Western Caribbean cruise. Short but good. That is amazing. My birthday is December 7th. Is your wife's birthday closer to Christmas? December people are cool. So, December birthday people. There's a lot of us. So that's something to really look forward to. Airbrush Dungeon says he wants to eventually do the Mediterranean on a clipper ship. Whoa, that's like almost like a pirate. That's so cool. December 4th, okay. Same week, so that's great. Same week to birthday, so that's cool. And so you see how I softened that? And so it's setting up, right? It's all like this whole pragmatic approach. So you're going to have that hard edge. That's part of it, but you can't leave it there. And you can see, so I have this one, which is an aggressive eraser. It's a typewriter eraser, but it's not as aggressive as, let's say, the real aggressive one, if I have it here to show you. So there's, this right here is super aggressive. I would use this on wood. So this is the Venus, right? The Venus Type E erase, 605B. That's super, super rough. That would actually tear into the paper and make marks. But this one is softer, and then this one right here would be the next softest down. So when you're erasing, always use the softest eraser that will do the job. Never use a very aggressive eraser to do a job where a softer eraser can do the job, because it will let me get my words together. If you use too hard of eraser, you could have too harsh of an effect. It's like trying to do a light value with a medium mixture ink. It's going to, you might be able to do it, but it's not the best tool for the job. And let's see, Dave says for December, and also Dave's parents are 19 and 21, December 19th and 21. And definitely not cooler than your parents. So your parents are definitely much more cool than me. So they made you. So how cool is that? That's super cool. So that's cool. December people, right? They're really cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is we'll soften that, right? So now I'm going to have that same detail mixture, and I'm going to have my reference really close, right? So the 1 second rule. I'm going to paint for a second, and then I'm going to look for a second, and then paint for a second. And it's not the time interval. I mean, it's not the time, but the interval. So if I'm going to paint for 2 seconds, I'm going to look in that area of my reference for 2 seconds. And I'm really going to study that. And now you can see how I soften that up. And on the inside edge, where it's a little harder, then I could come in and kind of feather that out, right? Which is really great. And then it's a little darker as it comes down from the chin, because we have the cast shadow of her jaw and chin area here. I'm just going to slowly pump that trigger and bring that down. And remember, things don't always only go from left to right. They also go from up and down as far as the light, depending on the orientation. If the light is diagonal from her, then the light is going to be moving diagonal. If the light is up front, on top of her, it's going to go more up and down, because light doesn't follow the form, it brushes across the form. And that's a very important lesson to know, is that light will move across the form and kind of wave over it, as a wave would go over her. That light from that direction will move over her. And you'll see that same kind of, no matter what it is, if it's, the eye socket all the way down to her pinky toe, it's going to go in that same direction. That light is going to just wave over every part of her, so that's cool. So Dave says, I haven't met them. We just got to make sure that your parents can't see this live stream, that's all, because you'd be in trouble. That's so funny. So you see how we softened that up, how cool that was. And also we want to compress those values, so we want to make sure that we don't have too much of a jump from the dark to the light. So I'm just going to compress these values, soften this edge here. The more compressed the values are, the more things are going to look three-dimensional. So even if it is like a harsh, light and dark, and the values are kind of far away, it always pays to, maybe just compress those values a little bit and get like a softer feel. And also I'm going to be looking at the space left by the trapezius right over here. So the trapezius comes out of the scapula and comes out behind the neck, right to the outside of the sternocleidomastoid at the base of the skull. So we want to make sure that we have the knowledge of what's happening with her, right? And if we have the knowledge of what's happening with her, we can describe the forms and understand what's happening and create a much more believable portrait. So it's that whole pragmatic approach. When I have some time, I'm studying anatomy, because my repertoire, my specialty, of course, is portraits. So if my specialty was buildings, I would be studying architects, right? If my specialty was custom work, I would be studying that, the anatomy of that. So it's so important to make sure that we know the inside and out of what our subject is. So the more we know about it, the more we can say about it, right? So I find that, the more I study anatomy, the better. Here's another thing that's a key consideration. So you can see that the shadow here is on the neck area, right? So it's not on the chin. But as we go up to the jaw, you want to ask yourself, there's a dark right at the chin or the jaw here, the mandible. You have to ask yourself, is that shadow on the light side or the dark side? It means everything. So there's a lot of times where there'll be a shadow on, let's say, the underplane over here and the light's over here, and then it reverses. So always look out for that, and those are those little tiny things that take your work from 7 to 10. And we need all the help we can get. I need all the help I can get, I need every edge possible, no pun intended, right? So I'm just going to show you how important it is to really slow things down and really decide, what's happening here. I want to make sure I describe it. So I'm going to put the freehand shield where I don't want to spray, right? So that's the outside of that mandible or jawbone. So you see how the shadow is actually on the inside, and then the light's on the outside, and then over here the shadow's on the outside and the light's on the inside. Those are little tiny things that add up, and you do a lot of them, it's really cool. I mean, it really works. So those are things to really take into account, and that whole pragmatic kind of approach is always important. So now I'm going to come in here. So the chin is a very interesting thing, and I know it's not the most exciting stuff, but it's important stuff. A good teacher is going to give you what you need and not always what you want, right? And so same thing with parents, right? As parents, and our parents always gave us what we needed, but not always what we wanted. Maybe what we wanted later, after we got what we needed. So the fruit and vegetable, the vegetables and the meat, and then came the cling peaches at the end after we got the important stuff in. So I am going to bring in an anatomical illustration. Let's see here. And we'll just move this up. And thanks everyone for how do I say, indulging me in these anatomical elements that I use here. And let's see, I'm going to have to bring in that image, so just be one moment. I'm going to, with this program is great. Those who have aspirations to do live streams, there's a free program for Windows called SplitCam. If you're interested, I will get you the application for free. And it's free, but, through me, you won't have to search for it, and you definitely won't get, like, a virus. Because a lot of times when you look for, a program, when you do a search, there's a virus. And, I hate that. So this is going to be good. So I have two images here. So I'm going to put this one, which is going to show the bone, and another one's going to show the malar, the fat compartment. So we'll have this and this one. Let's see if it does both. Let's do all three here so we can see exactly what's happening here. It is kind of gruesome, when you look at how we're made, it's pretty scary. But let's see. Okay, so we have all three. So we're going to be talking about her chin, right? So we're going to go from, let's move this over. So we'll start with her skull. So right there, we're working on her chin, and this is called the mentalis. No, it's called the mental. No, it's called the mentalis, and it's our chin area, and it comes out, and you see it from the side. It actually juts out from where the orbital bone is, not the oral bones where the teeth are and everything on the bottom jaw, and it comes out. So there is, a protuberance, right? But after that comes our muscles, which kind of wrap around that area that juts out of the chin, right? And some people, if you look at this, you definitely can see that it leaves a space. And between these two muscles here on each side, there's going to be a different kind. Some people have more of a space and less of a space, right? And you can definitely see that. And that's what causes a lot of the cleft chin and everything like that. I think that's what it's called. Kirk Douglas had a really big one that made him famous. And then we're going to go with the fat compartments, which actually go on top of the muscles. So there's a lot of different things that make up the chin. There's a lot of layers, and those variations are what, if we know that on top of the bone and on top of the muscle is this thin layer of fat that kind of looks like a golf ball. That golf ball is actually kind of cut, so as you don't get the full round of the golf ball, on the top there's this line that kind of cuts it off. That line is part of this muscle group called the orbicularis oris, which orbicular means orbit and oris means mouth. So it's this muscle that goes around. So there's several layers of what's happening with her chin. And I just wanted to share that with you all, and I hope that was okay. And so now we can go back to our regularly scheduled program. Hey, Bobby, how's it going? Great to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I don't know. I think I was working with the anatomy, so I'm glad I saw you. I'm so glad. How's everything going, Mr. Bobby? And Bobby says he would be interested in that live stream info. Very cool. And let's see. Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely IM me, Mr. Phillip, and I will get that information for you. Send you a link and everything that won't have a virus. And so that's cool. And Bobby says, is this Friday night group class? No. Yes, I go over in the group class of my, Bobby's one of my students. And in the group class, we go over things like anatomy, like, using programs and, all the different things that I could, go deep in a group class. That's included with my mentorship class, which is really cool. And Michael says, yeah, that clock goes fast. That's funny. So now we have an understanding of what we're going to be doing with her chin, right? So I am going to, now you see she has a little cleft, and we know that has to do with several factors, the muscle and the bone. So we're going to be working on that right now. And having that diluted detail mixture allows me to be very subtle. I don't have to worry. If I had a darker mixture, or if I was using Createx and I didn't have it diluted like really a lot, and it wasn't super transparent, you wouldn't be able to get this subtlety, and you would be fighting with it. You can do this subtlety with Createx. It's a great paint, but you would have to know how to dilute that. And someone to really look at for that is Steve Leahy. He has that great knack of knowing how to dilute it, Mr. Michael says he's going to go, got to turn in, get things ready for this weekend, early day tomorrow. Mr. Michael, thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks for hanging out. I can't wait to see the painting of Susan Day George. Now I'm going to do a Susan Day. So that's cool. So we'll compare and contrast, As soon as I hear from Ken, I will let you know, and we'll get that ball rolling, okay? So thank you so much for your patience. So I really, really super appreciate you like you just don't know. And so looking forward to the progress of the new pieces. So we're going to continue coming over here. And so now we have that little cleft, and we know that's part of the anatomy. Now remember, on top of everything, we had that mental fat compartment, and that's a little golf ball shape here. But remember, the full circle didn't happen because the orbicularis oris, the round muscle orbiting the mouth, cuts it off at the top. And you'll always see this line here. So do that. Look at the chin and notice that there's a line just underneath the lip and there's like a harsh line there. So that's always cool, is when you learn anatomy, you really can start looking at people and say, aha, she has she has a more pronounced orbicularis. She's not going to think that you're talking about her mouth, and you'll probably get slapped. So don't say it out loud. You could say, "Wow, your nasal labial fold is really stunning." Don't say that because they're not going to think that it's the line from the back of the nostril to the corner of the lip. They might think you're saying something else. So I don't want you to get slapped. Everything kind of sounds, suspect when you're saying anatomical terms. Cool. Bobby's also looking forward to Mr. Mike's painting, as we all are. And just building up, like I said. So that chin, when you study anatomy, and you don't have to know the names of everything, it helps. But if you just, understand what's happening, it's not a mystery, right? I could really get in there and understand what's happening and portray it even better. And also, let's say if you're working and, maybe the photograph doesn't show that, for whatever reason, lack of dynamic range or something like that. Having that knowledge of anatomy would be able to fill in the blanks. So really a cool thing to know. And that's if you're interested in portraits. If you're not interested in portraits, then, it's not necessary. But if you're like me and portraits are your thing, then you definitely want to, cultivate that knowledge. But I know that, when painting anything, painting the human form is definitely, you can paint that well, you can master that, you can paint anything. I also feel if you master oil paint, you can paint with any medium. So you see also I'm compressing those values, right? Not letting those values be too harsh, right? Because let's say if the light and darks are really harsh over here, then it's going to look like her mouth is pasted on there. She's wearing wax lips. Those are things that we have to worry about. So, whether you're doing custom paint or anything, it always pays to look at the work of the old masters, right? The work of Rembrandt, different centuries, 17th century Italian paintings, how they handled it, 16th century Flemish paintings, the paintings of the Quattrocento of Renaissance, people like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and those. And, it's a really interesting subject, and I would love for you all to delve into that. And it will make your work better, and it will kind of connect you to the profound tapestry of art history, because whether we like to hear it or not, you all are part of art history. We're painting art, and we are history, right? We're recent history and current history. So we're all part of that tapestry. How we paint really has to do with how the Italian guy painted in the Renaissance back in 1467 or something like that, right? So it's just very important to know that we are connected. And the more that we can kind of know, how they painted and the tools they used, we can actually use some of that information to really help us. So I know, I'm a different kind of artist. So quick story, backstory, don't fall asleep on me. But a quick backstory is I had a very classical education before I came to Airbrush, right? So I've already studied at the academies and the Art Students League and the High School of Art and Design. I sought out the teachers that I felt were technically what I wanted to learn, that were based into the work of the old masters, right? So I studied drawing, I studied pen and ink, I studied, um, oil painting primarily for 8 years, and really got, really well versed in it. So, and I should have been an oil painter, and then I studied with this gentleman. My real mentor is Harvey Dinnerstein. He passed away 2 years ago, and he had a profound effect. And he was one of the first artists to paint in pastel in the way that artists paint in oils. Very detailed, very historical based, and everything like that. So I did pastels. In the 90s, when I finished art school, my dad got sick with emphysema, and I was living in Florida with my parents, and I couldn't work in oils. So, and I couldn't work in pastels because those are things that compromise the air. So I went and started working in colored pencils, and kind of mastered that technique. And then from colored pencils, I stopped painting when my father passed away for a time, and moved back up to New York. And as I moved back up to New York, I got into painting when I got married. She was an artist as well, so it was like a renaissance in a sense. And so I started working in acrylic and watercolor and kind of mastered that. And then after that, I got bored with acrylic and watercolor, and decided to go back to pastels, and worked in pastels, and kind of uncovered the ability I had in that from Harvey. And then, had a divorce, a nasty divorce, and, I wanted to do something different that had nothing to do with my past, and I picked up airbrush back in 2009. And picking up that airbrush in 2009, it was something that no one had a part of. It was just me, right? I didn't have any kind of, it's not something I shared with anybody. So between 2009 and let's say 2017, I feel like I got a hold of the medium to the point where I was able to teach it. And since 2018-17, I really honed in and used airbrush to a level I'm happy with. The great thing about airbrush now, I use that. It's one of my mediums, but I also use airbrush for the underpaintings of every technique that I have, whether it's going back to oils or pastel, or even just black and white airbrush paintings, and acrylic paintings using Createx. So having a basis of your technique, and a lot of you artists out there are just so amazing in airbrush, right? You guys are incredible. So think of it this way: you have that mastery of airbrush. You can go anywhere with that. You can pick up watercolor and study watercolor, and you would master that so quickly because it's all connected, right? And that's what I find. It's all connected. And, you use the same thing, anatomy, the study of the old masters, different artists that you like. Some guys like Boris Vallejo, and some guys like Frank Frazetta, Drew Blair. It's all connected, right? So that's the cool thing about all of this, is that if you are working in airbrush, and Dwayne is a master at airbrush, definitely. If he ever decided to go into any medium, it would not be hard. It might be an adjustment at first, but it wouldn't be hard or too difficult. So that's my whole point. There's a tapestry. It's all connected. Oil painting, watercolor, the old masters, painters of the 19th century, the 18th century, 20th century, today. It's all so. So I hope that didn't bore you. So Dave already fell asleep. That's funny. And yeah, so it's all connected. And when I have someone that studies with me, of course I give what you want. You come to me wanting to know airbrush, and we'll concentrate on that. But the great thing that I feel that I offer is that there's a point of departure, right? There's, we can move on from the airbrush and not throw away what we learned, but kind of expand, right? Expand out. And that's what we want to do. We want to expand out. And so that's one of the things I feel of being an artist in my career. I was basically geared to just be an oil painter. That was my studies. But I really feel that, it's that constant exploration, the constantly being an artist, and don't have mediums kind of hold you back, right? And oh, Nick says he's glad he stayed more towards the markers and airbrush instead of digitally related medium because AI has started taking over. That's a very good consideration. Yes, so I see a lot of people who were quote unquote just digital painters, Nick, and they're having a hard time because there's no need commercially as much. No need, I would say, not as much because people can create their own digital art. So it's a tough time. It's going to be a tough time for us as well. But yes, I mean, it's good that you kind of diversified, right? So you want to, that's another thing. If we're more diversified, then we're going to be more successful. Brad got a portrait commission. Even though he studied with me primarily in airbrush, we moved over to oil, and he has a portrait commission in oils. So it's something that kind of just expands your toolbox, right? And that's what we want, expand the toolbox and expand our horizons, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to expand our horizons and, always be that, student forever. The great painter Titian, and he was a 16th century uh, Venetian painter, Italian from Venice. And he said, and I quote, "It takes a lifetime to learn how to paint and another lifetime to paint." And I'm so on board with that. I know there's so much I want to learn, and I'm always studying, and always looking for someone who can teach me a thing or two, right? It's very important. And Mr. Dave says it's hard for AI to paint a canvas or a car or motorcycle tins right now. Yes, that's true. So that's where right now the custom painters are safe. Right now the portrait painters are safe because who wants a print of an AI portrait on their wall? It just doesn't do it. So right now we're safe, but there's the technique is going to be only better. I mean, the technology is going to be only better. But I think that people in general are going to revolt from AI in the future, especially when it comes to fine art. I think that's really going to be something that, right now it seems all the rage, but the smart people, the people with culture and class, are not going to want an AI painting, especially a custom AI painting on their car. But thank God that AI can't do those things just yet. But the thing that I feel that might be the dangerous thing for us artists is that people might say that they painted it, when it comes to the point where AI can put paint on canvas, or even a point where AI can do custom work on a motorcycle or something like that, is that people will pawn off AI as their work and they can do it faster. And that is the scary part. It's not the technology that's scary, it's what bad people are going to do with it, right? And that's important. And Nick says he never thought he'd be a pinstriper until he had to outline a flame job, and he did it on a motorcycle. And well, here we are. Yes, expand your technique. I'm I'm not a young kid anymore. I feel like a young kid, but I'm always looking to expand my technique, always willing to take it to the next level. And don't be afraid to take a class. I take classes now and then, and in different mediums, because I look at someone who's teaching and I say, I want that. I want an element of what they have. So the only way I'm going to get that either is to study their work intently, and I do that, let's say, a lot of times if I'm studying the work of an old master. I can't study with Botticelli, but I can really do a deep dive into his work and really kind of do master copies. You see, I do a lot of master copies lately. And master copies are great because it's like having a conversation with that artist that has been dead 200 years, right? So you can really delve into the technique and kind of get into the mind of that artist. So a lot of great things. And so Nick is still waiting for his teleporter. That's pretty funny. Yeah, we do need one of them. That's for sure. So we can study with Michelangelo if we want, you know. I think it's funny with a lot of people that do past life regressions or whatever, and they always end up being famous people. You know, I would probably be like, you know, like some guy who got the water for the guy who got the water from somebody else. You know, if I did a past life regression, I don't think I would be a famous person like 99% of the people. I'd be a peasant or something. You know, a serf. Yeah, the guy in charge of rowing the boat below deck on a Viking ship. Not the guy in charge, but one of the grunts. That would be me, you know, if I did a past life regression. And Airbrush Dungeon says, well, guys, I'm hitting the rack. I subbed. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. All the way from Pennsylvania. Thank you. And we'll be looking for the next live stream, Tim. Thank you so much. And so I definitely every Wednesday night I do some quick ones, some surprise ones. You'll be alerted. If you hit that bell icon, Nick, you'll get alerted for everything if you have time. But thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate you. I hope you have a great weekend and you have all this inspiration and your artwork just explodes. So that's my prayer for you, my friend. And so now we're going to be working on her nostril, and this is, so okay, so here's another thing. So we have her nose, right? Interesting. We paint the nose. I hear a lot of people say the nose is so hard. It is hard. It's a very complex thing. However, if we break it down and kind of know what it's about, its complexity kind of goes away a little bit. I have a anatomical image here of her nose here. We're going to look at that side by side, and all of a sudden we're going to say, you know what? That nose is not as mysterious as we initially thought. So we're going to move this. Let's move her right here. Move this. So now we can see when we have the nose the same size as our picture, we can definitely see the elements of that nose, right? So over here we have the nasal bone right over here. That's the top like 1.5 to 2 inches coming from the glabella. And then we have the upper lateral cartilage, which is in the middle. And then in the center we have what is called the alar cartilage. And alar in Latin means wing, right? So it looks like a butterfly wing if you look at the bottom part that's in blue. And right down the center separates the left and right of everything. So the left nasal bone, you have the center in the middle, and you have the right nasal bone. And then the upper lateral cartilage, you have the left side and the right side separated by the septum, and also the alar cartilage is separated by the septum. So with all that going on and all that information, let's come over here. Uh-oh, I have this screen here. Let's see, I am going to get rid of that. There's this little thing here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, it's doing something weird. I don't know if you guys can see it, but on my screen, let me undo this here. Okay. Okay, cool. So now we're back in business. So now we have the information that, you know, with our reference, we have that septum going down the center, right? So, and that separates the alar cartilage. So we can see that right in the center is that, you know, the septum separating the both sides of the alar cartilage. And then here we have the shadow of that alar cartilage on both sides. Of course, on the shadow side, it's going to be darker, but on the light side, it's still going to be there, but it's going to be a lighter value, right? So we'll just kind of, you know, work on that. And then over here, it's darker where we have the crease of the nostril, the wing of the nostril, we should say, not the nostril itself. And you know, we may have gone too dark there. It's easily fixed. But what I find is when you're painting and you ever go too dark in the early going, don't erase it just yet because it might just fall in line when you make everything around it darker. So definitely wait before you lighten things. And we want to make sure we stress this alar cartilage right here and then go right into the upper lateral cartilage, right like that. So that nose is no longer, it's still beautiful and it's still very mysterious and everything like that, but it's not a mystery, right? We can paint it, and because we have that knowledge of it. And I'm going to do some erasing to shape some of the forms, of course. But having that detail mixture really allows me to explore it without going too dark too early. And I'm also compressing these values. So it is turning. The values are a lot closer, even closer than in my portrait, right? Even closer than the reference. So you see how as I make these values closer to one another on the shadow side, like right here, let's make that an example. We can definitely just kind of compress that form, make that side of the face turn slowly, and that's her elegance, right? She's not like angular like a robot. She has this beautiful slow turn on the zygomatic bone and into the mandible and everything like that. So you can accentuate the beauty by compressing those values, which is so important, which are so important. And let's see what I missed here. Oh, hey, how you doing, my friend Air Todd, all the way from San Diego? How's it going? So glad you're here. Better late than never, my friend. Never late, and it's always great to see you. So it's more important to see you than any time constraints. So I'm just glad you're here. So that is so very cool. So when I say compressing the values, make sure that you don't have too much contrast. I see that too often in even experienced artists. Like right here, we look at this eye here. See the high contrast here? It's not good. We want to lower that contrast. So what we're going to do, on this side, we're just going to hit that dark, and we're just going to kind of kiss the, we're going to kiss the outside rim of her iris. See that? And just kind of soften that a little bit. And then we're setting up for the next stage. So you see how it was super contrasty before? And it takes, especially when painting a woman, right? You want things soft, you want elegance, you want that beauty, you want that feminine mystique and everything like that. So that's so important. And now watch how I set up. So I made that now the white of the eye, which is definitely not white in the shadow area. Watch as I kind of compress those values. Make that value much closer to that iris. And also the white of the eye much closer to the shadow of her eye. And see as we compress. So right up here, yes, it's light and it kind of shows the form off more, right? However, if we compress that value, we'll have more of a sense of this is the shadow side and this is the light side. So one of the things Harvey told me one time when, I think it was Ron Scher, I had a portrait and the light was the same on the shadow side. It was Harvey. And he said the light on the shadow side can never be in a natural setting as bright as the light on the light side. So that, like, it stuck with me, and that was a lot of years now. It was, you know, a lot of years. I'm not going to say how many because then I'm going to feel old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dust this, and watch as I lower and compress those values. Look what happens. See as I compress those values? We still see the anatomical form, but all of a sudden there's an elegance that wasn't there. And that's why, you know, me taking that time in 2009 to pick up the airbrush gives me so much more to my other mediums, right? I'm a much better oil painter because of airbrush. I'm much better pastel painter because of airbrush. I'm a much better airbrush painter because of my oil paints. So those are things to think about. I'm going to move down to her nostril and just darken that. Now the trick with darkening is hit it and move, right? Don't stay in that area. The thing is, we might want to stay in that area and just continue. But just like a puddle when it's raining, right? The rain comes down and the ground is soaking up that water. But what happens when the ground can't soak up that water? The water starts pooling, and as it's pooling, the rain splashes. Same exact, the same exact thing is happening with your airbrush, right? So you're staying in that area, everything's fine, spidering. And it's the same exact reason, is that, rain on the ground sort of thing. Okay, so, and here we're going to compress these values a little bit more. Same thing with the white of the eye on this side. Now the white of the eye on the light side is going to be brighter than on the shadow side, right? And the same thing, let's compress the values on this side of her eye. This eye. And it's going to be much brighter, don't get me wrong. Going to hit this detail right here in the corner of her eye. But there's more value on the shadow side of her eyelids, right? And we're not just going to hit it and have the white right next to it. When things are round, they're turning slow, and as they turn slow, they go from one value to the next. And that's the compression that we're looking for. Further away, the lighter the spray. That's one of my Timisms. So if you want it lighter, like over here, see we were darker here because that's the dark side. On the light side, we want it lighter, so we're going to be much further away. The further away, the lighter the spray. And so, again, it's having the airbrush do the work. Why are you going to do the work when the airbrush is happy to do it for you? We got to master this thing. But just like anything, the paintbrush in oils is not the true medium. The airbrush is not the true medium. It's your brain and your hand-eye coordination. That is the true material that we're using. These are just tools, and and the more that I paint and the more mediums that I use, the more I realize that it's only a tool. And I could use a bell pepper and some ink and do a drawing, right? I can cut the bell pepper into a sliver, and I could paint with that and feel I can create a work of art with it. So it's not really the medium that's important. It's you. You're the one animal that can do what God does, is create, right? Now you might say, well, what about a bee? They make the beautiful beehive, and spiders make beautiful webs, but they're not making it for aesthetic purposes. They're not making it for the beauty of it. They're making it because that's their instincts. We're the one thing on earth, it's not in heaven, that can create, and that's something to really rejoice in, right? And Matisse, the great 19th century painter, he said that painting's like praying, and I feel that. I feel that strongly. And so now we're going to go ahead and kind of come in here and use our eraser techniques. And you can do erasing techniques with the Airbrush India ink. So, why Airbrush India ink? What's the thing, right? Why not just, go about using whatever you've been using before? Well, with Airbrush India ink, I can turn this into an oil painting. I can turn this into working with Createx illustration colors, or working with Wicked colors. I could do pastel over this. It's just the India ink and the airbrush is the perfect underpainting in all of history. The best underpainting is this, and I believe that 100%. So if you haven't, learned the airbrush and India ink technique, it's going to open up things for you. It's going to make you better at whatever you do. So let's say you are a well, maybe not so much custom painter because this is India ink, but let's say if you are, you know, doing cars, right? You know, painting a car like Mr. Leahy does, or something like that. Starting off in India ink will open up a lot for you, right? Because of what it does. And one of the advantages is that you'll never have a pencil line caught underneath. Something about India ink is that for some reason it doesn't cover your pencil lines. Same thing with this stuff right here. The Createx 50/50 illustration white doesn't trap your pencil line. So those are things that really are important and I really believe in. And you know, when I devised these India inks, they were for me. They weren't for anyone else because I work in several different ways. And it's tested. Working with Createx is just a wonderful combination. Createx over the Airbrush India inks is just wonderful. And the subtlety that you can get is just astounding. So right now I'm going to kind of lighten this up here, and I'm using this mono eraser. Remember the whole thing. The softest eraser that will do the job is the right eraser. So I can come in with this and kind of do what I want, and I don't have to use the more aggressive eraser. It's going to tear into the surface, so you want to save the surface. So right here on here you can see this pencil line. Now I've been airbrushing on this for a while, right? And you would think the Airbrush India ink would trap that. If it was acrylic inks or anything other than my inks, that would be trapped underneath. So let's see if I could illustrate this before I go, which is really cool. So I'm going to zoom in, see if we can see that line. Oh, see that pencil line? There it is, right? Now I can, at this late stage, I can get rid of that pencil line. Now if you're doing a portrait, and I know those who have done, you know, airbrushing commercially, if your client sees a pencil line, he's not going to be too happy, right? And you're going to have a hard time covering that. So very important. And you can use India ink on a car. Now you would have to, like anything else, you would have to make sure that you prime it and have a rough surface, right? So I know that Mr. Leahy uses Autoborn sealer and he paints on top of that. So you definitely can do that, but know that it's only going to be for your underpainting. It wouldn't be for the final product. So definitely, I would give it a shot, not on your client's work, but definitely try it. And that's where, you know, I remember when I was starting Airbrush and I worked in India ink as my underpaintings just with the regular paintbrush. I was like, what if I try this, you know? And it's like, holy cow. And I had a lot of people back then say that the airbrush is not made for India ink, and that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Couldn't be. Mr. Todd says, nice looking work, Tim. Night all. Take care. Always a pleasure. So as you can see, pencil lines are a thing of the past. And you know, so now if I have this as an underpainting, I could come in and work in Createx and not have the pencil lines. So you can have, you know, a very beautiful, clean image that you don't have to erase or don't have to hide. And one thing about airbrushing is, you know, it's inherently an transparent medium. So pencil lines could really be a point of frustration for anybody. So we are at 11:31. So, you know, we can see we did some work today and it was a lot of fun. And you can see just slowly we're kind of bringing her together, compressing those values, making her realistic, having the anatomy in line, right? Thinking of the anatomy, which is so important. And thank you everybody for blessing me to spend this Wednesday night with me. You guys are all a big blessing and I rejoice in that. Thank you so much for the super chats. You all are amazing. Mr. Dave, thank you for your generous super chat. Brad, Michael, you guys are just so great. And I'm always touched that, you know, I get your support and friendship. I hope everyone has a great weekend. A wonderful weekend. Prayers goes out to Gary's son, Kyle, for a very quick and 100% return to health and vibrancy of being young, right? So, everyone, thank you so much. If you have any questions, Philip, send me an email and I'll get you that link for you, or IM me. That would be great. And I'll get that link for a split cam. And any questions you have for live stream. I'm a very simple live streamer, and so I'm not going to be complicated. And that's good. You don't want complicated when it comes to live stream. Left things can go wrong. So, less things go wrong when things are simple. So, that's me. Guys, take care. Always a pleasure. And I will talk to you next week or during the week. Bye, everybody.